My girlfriend gave my seat at her cousin's wedding to her male best friend. I left without a word. I'm 31 male, she's 28 female. We were together 8 months. This whole situation is still messing with my head a little bit. So I figured I'd get some perspective from people who weren't there and don't have any skin in the game. Sometimes you need strangers on the internet to confirm you're not losing your mind. And believe me, after what happened, I was starting to question everything I thought I knew about reading people. So I had been dating Brooke for about 8 months when everything went down. We met through mutual friends at a barbecue back in March, and things moved pretty naturally from there. She was smart, ambitious, worked as an event coordinator for a nonprofit downtown that did community development stuff. We had good chemistry, similar sense of humor, and she seemed genuinely interested in building something real. At least that's what I thought at the time. The first few months were great. We did all the normal early relationship stuff. Dinners at places neither of us could really afford but went to anyway. Movies where we'd share popcorn and argue about which previews looked good. Weekend hikes when the weather was nice. She met my family pretty early on because that's just how I operate. If I'm serious about someone, they're going to meet the people I care about. My mom loved her immediately, kept texting me after that first dinner about how polite and pretty she was. My brother Ryan said she seemed solid, which from him is basically a glowing endorsement. Everyone was optimistic about where things were heading. Looking back now with clearer eyes, there were signs I probably should have caught earlier. Little things that didn't seem like a big deal in isolation, but add up to a pretty clear picture when you stack them all together. The way she'd angle her phone away from me when certain texts came in, tilting the screen just enough that I couldn't see who was messaging her. How she'd get this specific energy, this brightness in her expression, whenever she talked about her college days. The fact that after 8 months of dating, I still hadn't met most of her close friends, even though she'd met all of mine multiple times. There was also the way she talked about her past. Most of it was vague, surface-level stuff she'd brush past quickly. But whenever the subject of her college years came up, she'd get almost nostalgic, wistful, like she was remembering something precious that she'd lost. I asked her about it once, and she just said those were some of the best years of her life. I didn't push for details. Probably should have. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you about the wedding that ended everything. This past weekend was her cousin Leah's wedding, which was apparently a massive deal in Brooke's family. Leah was the first grandchild to get married, so the whole extended family was treating it like a royal coronation. Aunts flying in from across the country, uncles dusting off suits they hadn't worn in a decade, the grandmother who apparently had opinions about everything being wheeled in like royalty, the whole production. Brooke had been talking about this wedding for weeks. Actually, weeks is an understatement. She'd been stressing over every detail since Leah announced her engagement. What we'd wear, how we'd present ourselves as a couple, whether her traditional grandmother would approve of me, which relatives to avoid because they always cause drama. The whole 9 yards. She kept making comments about how important it was that everything go perfectly, how her family could be judgmental about partners, how first impressions really mattered with these. I tried to be supportive, told her I'd be on my best behavior, promised to charm the pants off her relatives, offered to help with anything she needed leading up to the big day. Standard boyfriend stuff. I wanted her to feel confident bringing me into her family world. Then Friday night happened. We were at her place getting ready for the rehearsal dinner, doing the final outfit check for the next day. I was adjusting my tie in front of her bedroom mirror when she looked at my reflection and said something that should have been my first real warning sign. Just don't embarrass me tomorrow, okay? I remember pausing with my tie half done, trying to figure out how to take that. Don't embarrass her? We'd been together 8 months. I'd met her parents twice and both dinners went well. Had a great conversation with her sister about travel destination. I thought we were past the please don't make me look bad phase of the relationship. I thought she trusted me by now, but I let it slide. Chalked it up to wedding stress and family pressure. Told myself she didn't mean it the way it sounded. That's the thing about ignoring red flags. You get really good at making excuses for people when you want things to work out. You tell yourself stories that explain away the discomfort, because the alternative is admitting something might be fundamentally wrong. Saturday morning arrives bright and sunny. Perfect wedding weather. We drive out to this gorgeous venue about 40 minutes outside the city. Old vineyard property converted into an event space, rolling hills covered in grapevines, string lights everywhere, white tents set up for the cocktail hour. The whole Pinterest fantasy setup that probably cost more than my annual salary. Brooks buzzing with nervous energy the entire drive, fidgeting with her dress in the passenger seat, checking her makeup in the visor mirror every 30 seconds, adjusting her hair, then adjusting it again, running through the guest list and telling me who to impress and who to avoid. I reached over and squeezed her hand a few times, tried to calm her down. She barely seemed to notice. Her mind was somewhere else entirely, We park and walk into the reception hall where they've got the seating chart displayed on this big, elegant board near the entrance. Cream-colored paper with gold calligraphy listing every guest and their assigned table. Very classy. Guests are milling around, finding their tables, greeting family members they haven't seen in months or years. Normal wedding stuff. There's a buzz of excitement in the air. Everyone dressed in their finest. I start scanning the chart for our names, trying to locate where we'd be sitting for the reception after the ceremony. Brooke's family was apparently traditional about these things, with specific tables for immediate family, extended family, close friends, and then outer circles of acquaintances. That's when Brooke puts her hand on my arm and goes, "Oh, actually, I need to tell you something." The way she said it made my stomach drop. Nothing good ever follows that sentence. In my experience, "I need to tell you something" usually means someone's about to deliver news they know you won't like, and they've been putting off saying it. I find our table on the chart. Table 7, right near the front, close to the head table where the bride and groom would be sitting. Good placement. Family table territory. But something's off. There's only one place card with Brooke's name on it. Right next to it is a card that says Tyler Reeves. No card for me anywhere at that table. Tyler Reeves. I'd heard plenty about Tyler over the past 8 months. He was Brooke's best friend from college, a personal trainer who owned a small gym across town. They texted constantly, like morning, noon, and night constantly. I'd be sitting with Brooke watching a movie, and her phone would buzz and she'd smile at the screen in this particular way before responding. Every time. Like clockwork. I'd never actually met the guy in person, but according to Brooke, he was just a really close friend who understood her in ways most people didn't. They had this deep connection from their college years that she valued tremendously. A bond that transcended normal friendship, or at least that's how she described it whenever his name came up. Every time Tyler came up in conversation, she'd get this certain look in her eyes, this softness, this warmth that I noticed but never commented on. Figured I was being paranoid. Figured jealousy over a male friend would make me look insecure and controlling. So I kept my mouth shut and trusted her when she said it was purely platonic. Trusted her when she said I had nothing to worry about. Standing there in front of that seating chart with 100 wedding guests milling around us, I asked the obvious question. "Where's my seat?" Brooke pointed toward the back of the room. Table 12. Way in the corner near the service entrance where the catering staff would be going in and out all night. A table filled with names I didn't recognize, people I'd never met. "I know it looks weird," she said quickly, already going into damage control mode before I could even process what was happening. "But Tyler knows my family really well, and Leah specifically asked if he could sit with us because he gets along so great with everyone. You understand, right? It's just seating. It doesn't mean anything." Here's the thing about moments like this. Your gut tells you everything you need to know if you're actually willing to listen to it. In that moment, standing in that beautiful reception hall surrounded by people in formal wear and floral arrangements, my gut was screaming at me. Screaming that this wasn't about seating logistics or family dynamics, or any of the reasonable explanations she was trying to feed me. This was my girlfriend telling me in front of her entire extended family that another man was more important than me. But Brooke's looking at me with these expectant eyes, almost challenging me to make a scene, almost daring me to be the jealous boyfriend who couldn't handle his girlfriend having male friends. We're standing in the reception hall surrounded by aunts and uncles and cousins taking photos. Her grandmother is being helped to her seat by 2 younger relatives. What was I supposed to do? Throw a fit right there in front of everyone? Demand she rearrange the seating chart while 100 people watched? Storm out before the ceremony even started and give her entire family a story about the crazy boyfriend who ruined Leah's wedding day? So I just nodded and said, "I understand." And I did understand. I understood exactly what was happening. I understood that my girlfriend of 8 months had chosen to seat her male best friend in the spot that should have been mine at a family event. I understood that she'd relegated me to a back table with strangers while she sat at the family table with another man. I understood that she'd done this deliberately, had probably planned it for weeks, and was now looking at me like I was the unreasonable one for even questioning it. I smiled politely, told her I was going to use the restroom before the ceremony started, and walked calmly toward the exit. Not fast, not dramatic, just a steady walk past the cocktail area, past the guest book table with its silver pen, past the beautiful archway covered in white roses where Leah would be saying her vows in about 20 minutes, straight out the front door and into the parking lot. I got in my car and drove home. The whole drive back, I didn't even turn on the radio, just sat there in silence, hands at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel, processing what had just happened, replaying every moment of the past 8 months and seeing them differently now. All those times she laughed at Tyler's texts while we were having dinner. All those late-night conversations where she'd mentioned him casually, like he was just some background character in her life. The way she never seemed as excited to see me walk through her door as she was to hear from him on her phone. I thought about the trip we'd taken to the coast 2 months ago. We'd been walking on the beach, and her phone had buzzed. She'd stopped mid-sentence to check it, smiled at whatever Tyler had sent, and typed back a quick response before continuing our conversation. At the time, I told myself it was nothing, just a friend checking in. Now I saw it differently. Now I saw all of it differently. By the time I pulled into my apartment complex, my phone showed 17 missed calls. Brooke had apparently noticed I wasn't in the bathroom pretty quickly. The texts had started too. Where are you? What's going on? This isn't funny, Cole. Call me back right now. I didn't respond to any of them. Just walked into my apartment, sat down on my couch, and stared at the wall for about an hour. Here's the thing, though. I don't think I was angry. Angry would have meant I was surprised. And honestly, I wasn't really surprised. Not at my core. I was just clear. You know that feeling when someone shows you exactly where you stand with them? When all the little inconsistencies and weird moments suddenly make perfect sense? When the puzzle pieces you've been ignoring finally click together into a picture you can't unsee? That's what I felt driving home. Clarity. Pure, painful clarity. I was raised to believe that respect isn't something you negotiate. It's something you give and expect in return. And when it's not there, you have to be honest with yourself about what that means. When someone publicly demotes you, especially at their own family event, they're telling you and everyone watching exactly how much you matter to them. My dad always used to say if someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Don't wait for them to show you twice. Don't make excuses. I believed her. Edit. Didn't expect this post to blow up like this. Reading through all the responses now. Yeah, a lot of you are saying I should have made a bigger deal about it or confronted her in front of everyone. But honestly, what would that accomplish? Make a scene at her cousin's wedding? Make everyone uncomfortable? Give her family a story about the jealous boyfriend who ruined Leah's special day? That's not who I am. I handled it the way I handle most things. Quietly, decisively, and on my own terms. Edit 2. To answer the most common question. No, I haven't talked to her since. She's been calling and texting nonstop, but I'm not really sure what there is to discuss. She made her choice. I made mine. Update 1. Well, this got interesting fast. First off, thanks to everyone who responded to my original post. Reading through all your comments helped me process this situation more clearly than I expected. So, the voicemails. Let me tell you about the voicemails. Brooke left me 6 of them between Saturday afternoon and Sunday morning. I finally sat down yesterday and listened to them all in order. And honestly, they told me more about what was really going on than any face-to-face conversation could have. Voicemail 1. Saturday, 4:17 p.m. Cole, what the heck? You just left? Do you have any idea how this makes me look in front of my entire family? My grandmother kept asking where you were. Call me back right now. Notice anything about that one? No. Are you okay? No. I'm sorry you were hurt. Just immediate concern about how my leaving affected her image, her reputation. Not a single word about my feelings or why I might have left. Voicemail 2. Saturday, 6:23 p.m. I cannot believe you're doing this. It's Leah's wedding day and you're ruining it by being petty. Tyler is asking where you went and I don't know what to tell him. This is so embarrassing. Everyone keeps asking me where my boyfriend is, and I have to make up excuses. Tyler is asking where I went. Interesting detail to include? She's at her cousin's wedding, surrounded by family she's known her entire life, people who love her and want to know where the guy she'd been telling them about for months disappeared to, and the person whose questions she's most worried about answering? Tyler, not her mom, not her grandmother, not the bride herself. Tyler, the guy sitting in my seat wanted to know where I went, and Brooke was embarrassed that she didn't have an answer for him. Think about that for a second. Let that sink in. Voicemail 3. Saturday, 9:45 p.m. Okay, I get that you're upset, but this is ridiculous. It's just seating arrangements. You're acting like I committed some terrible crime. You need to stop being so dramatic. This is where the gaslighting started in earnest. Just seating arrangements. Like I was overreacting to something meaningless. Like any reasonable person would be fine with their girlfriend seating another man in their spot while banishing them to the back of the room. Voicemail 4. Saturday, 11:52 p.m. Look, I'm sorry if your feelings got hurt, but you have to understand. Tyler didn't want to sit with a bunch of random people he doesn't know. He would have been uncomfortable the whole night. I couldn't just let my best friend be miserable at my cousin's wedding. You're being really unfair about this whole situation. And there it was. The truth, wrapped in a half apology and a whole lot of justification. This wasn't about Tyler knowing her family better than I did. This wasn't about Leah specifically requesting he sit at the family table. This was about Tyler not wanting to sit with strangers, and Brooke prioritizing his comfort over her boyfriend's dignity. She literally admitted it out loud without realizing what she was confessing. Tyler's comfort mattered more than my place in her life. His feelings about where he sat were more important than how I would feel being demoted to the reject table while he took my spot next to my girlfriend at her family's table. She made the calculation and chose him, then called me unfair for having a problem with it. Voicemails 5 and 6 were variations on the same theme. Her crying and begging me to call her back, saying she loved me and didn't understand why I was punishing her like this, saying she missed me and wanted to work through this together. But here's what got to me about those last 2 messages, the thing that kept echoing in my head long after I deleted them. In 8 months of dating, Brooke had never once told me she loved me. Not during our late-night conversations about our futures and what we wanted from life. Not during any of our good moments together. Not when I helped her through that rough patch at work when her boss was being impossible. Not when I surprised her with that weekend trip she'd been wanting to take. Nothing. Complete silence on the love front for 8 entire months of being together. But she says it for the first time in a voicemail. A desperate voicemail at nearly midnight, where she's trying to manipulate me into forgetting about being publicly humiliated in front of 100 people. The first "I love you" I ever heard from her was a bargaining chip, not a genuine expression of how she felt. It was a tool she pulled out when she realized her usual tactics weren't working. That told me everything I needed to know about how real those words actually were. I've been thinking about patterns since this happened. All the things I missed or chose to ignore. The way she always prioritized Tyler's opinions when making decisions. How their texting was constant, to the point where it felt like I was interrupting their conversation just by being in the room. How she'd light up when his name appeared on her phone in ways she never did for mine. I wasn't her boyfriend competing with her best friend. I was her safe option being managed around her actual priority. My brother Ryan called yesterday. He's a firefighter, been married 6 years to a woman who treats him like he's the only man on earth. He knows what a real partnership looks like. "You did the right thing, man," he said. "That kind of disrespect doesn't get better. It gets worse." He's right. This wasn't about one seating arrangement. This was about someone showing me exactly where I ranked in their life. Oh, and Brooke's cousin Leah called me this morning. That's going to be its own conversation. Edit. For those asking if I'm going to call Brooke back. No. What would be the point? Edit 2. Leah wants to meet for coffee tomorrow. She said there are things about Brooke and Tyler that she thinks I should know. Update 2. Leah and I had that coffee yesterday, and everything makes so much more sense now. Pieces I didn't even know were missing suddenly clicked into place. We met at this little cafe near my office, neutral territory for both of us. Quiet spot, not too crowded on a weekday afternoon. Leah's one of those people who cuts right through the nonsense immediately. No small talk, no dancing around the subject, no pretending we were meeting for any reason other than the obvious one. She ordered her coffee, sat down across from me, and said, "I need you to know that everyone at that wedding noticed what happened, and most of us were disgusted by it." That hit me harder than I expected. I'd spent the past few days second-guessing myself, wondering if maybe I had overreacted, if maybe leaving without saying anything was too dramatic, if maybe I should have just sucked it up and sat at table 12 like a good sport. Hearing that other people saw what I saw, that it wasn't just in my head, that objective observers thought her behavior was out of line, that was validating in a way I didn't know I needed. Then Leah dropped the first bomb. Turns out she had specifically told Brooke that she wanted me at the family table. Leah was excited to finally meet the guy her cousin had been gushing about for months. Brooke had mentioned me frequently at family gatherings, talked about our relationship, made it sound like things were serious and heading somewhere real. Leah wanted to welcome me into the family properly as the bride. Brooke lied to me. She flat out lied about Leah requesting Tyler sit with the family. That was never the plan. That was never anyone's request but Brooke's own. That was entirely her decision. Made deliberately, probably planned for weeks, and executed without any consideration for how it would make me feel or look. But here's the real kicker. The thing that made everything click into place and explained the past 8 months better than anything else could. Leah told me that everyone in their family knows Brooke and Tyler used to date in college. They were together for almost 2 years before they broke up, and Brooke never really got over him when they split. "She's been hung up on Tyler for 6 years, Leah said, stirring her coffee and looking at me with genuine sympathy. Every guy she dates gets the same treatment eventually. She keeps them around for stability and companionship, for the comfort of having a relationship and someone to do couple things with. But her heart's always been with Tyler. It's like an open secret in our family at this point. We've all just stopped commenting on it because she gets defensive whenever anyone brings it up. 6 years. She'd been carrying a torch for this guy for 6 entire years, while cycling through relationships with other men who never stood a chance. I was just the latest in a long line of placeholders. Guys who served a purpose in her life, who provided the relationship experience she wanted, while she waited around hoping Tyler would finally decide he wanted her back. Leah said watching Brooke choose Tyler's comfort over my dignity at the wedding was painful for her. She could see how much it hurt me, even though I tried to keep my composure, the way I just quietly accepted it and then disappeared. She knew something was wrong the moment she saw the seating chart and realized what her cousin had done. The way you handled it was classy, she told me. Most guys would have made a scene or said something they'd regret, caused drama at my wedding that everyone would remember forever. You just removed yourself from the situation with your dignity intact. I respected that. Then she told me something that made my blood pressure spike. Brooke's been telling everyone in the family that I overreacted and left because I was jealous of her having male friends, that I'm insecure and controlling and couldn't handle her having a close friendship with another guy, that she didn't do anything wrong and I threw a tantrum over nothing because I have jealousy issues. Classic move. When you can't defend your actions, attack the person who called you out on them. Make them the villain so you can play the victim. Leah and I talked for about an hour. She apologized for her cousin's behavior and said she'd tried to talk to Brooke about it after I left. But Brooke just kept insisting I was being dramatic and that Tyler was just a friend. I drove home from that coffee feeling vindicated, but also sad for the time I'd wasted ignoring obvious red flags. 8 months of building something I thought was real, only to find out I was just keeping the seat warm. Then yesterday evening, Brooke showed up at my apartment with Tyler. I heard the knock around 7. 3 sharp raps on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I checked the peephole first. And there they both were, standing in my hallway like some kind of intervention team. Brooke was wearing the dress she'd worn on our 3rd date, the blue one I'd complimented her on. Probably a deliberate choice, trying to trigger some positive memory. Tyler stood behind her, looking like he'd rather be literally anywhere else on earth. Hands stuffed in his pockets, shoulders hunched, eyes firmly fixed on the hallway carpet. I opened the door but didn't invite them in. Just stood there in the doorway and waited. Brooke immediately launched into this clearly rehearsed speech about how I'd embarrassed her in front of her family by leaving, how she was trying to make things right between us. But I needed to stop being stubborn about the whole situation. She was talking fast, barely pausing for breath between sentences, like she'd practiced this monologue in the car on the way over, and wanted to get through it before I could interrupt. She talked about how hard it had been for her these past few days, how her family kept asking about me, how she'd been crying every night wondering what she did wrong, how she just wanted things to go back to normal. I let her finish. Every word of it. Didn't interrupt, didn't argue, didn't defend myself or explain my side. Just stood there in my doorway and listened to her explain, for about 3 solid minutes, why I was wrong for being hurt by what she did, why I needed to be more understanding, why I was overreacting and making a big deal out of nothing. When she finally ran out of steam, I looked past her at Tyler, caught his eye for the first time since I'd opened the door. I need to ask you something directly, I said. Are you and Brooke just friends? Brooke jumped in immediately, not giving him a chance to respond on his own. Of course we're just friends. What kind of question is that? Tyler, tell him. Tell him there's nothing going on between us. Tell him he's being ridiculous. But I held up my hand and kept my eyes locked on Tyler's face. I want to hear it from him. The silence that followed was deafening. Tyler stood there for what felt like forever, shifting his weight from one foot to the other, clearly wrestling with something internal. Brooke was staring at him with wide eyes, silently pleading with him to back up her story, to say the words she needed him to say. Finally, Tyler let out a long breath and spoke. Look, man, Brooke and I have history. We dated in college for almost 2 years. And yeah, there are still feelings there. On both sides, if I'm being completely honest. I told her bringing me to the wedding as her +1 when she had a boyfriend was messed up, but she insisted it was fine. As her +1, not as her best friend tagging along, not as a family friend who happened to get along with everyone, as her +1, her date, to her cousin's wedding. While I sat at table 12 thinking I was the one she'd chosen to bring as her partner, Brooke's face went completely white. She started stammering, words tumbling out in a panic, claiming that's not what happened, that Tyler was misremembering things, that I was twisting everything around to make her look bad. But Tyler shook his head slowly. Brooke, stop. This isn't fair to him. You've been trying to have it both ways for months now, keeping him around while keeping me close. He deserves to know the truth. I looked at Brooke standing there in my hallway, with her 3rd date dress and her caught red-handed expression. And for the first time in our entire relationship, I saw her exactly as she was. Not the version I'd been making excuses for all those months. Not the potential I'd been hoping she'd live up to. Just the reality of who she chose to be. I think you should both leave, I said. Brooke tried to argue, tried to get me to talk it through, to hear her side, to give her just 5 more minutes to explain. But I was done. Done talking, done listening. Done making space in my life for someone who'd been using me as a backup plan for 8 months. Tyler actually grabbed her arm gently and said, "Come on, Brooke, let's go." He's made his decision. After they left, I closed my door, walked to my couch, and just sat there for a long time thinking about how I'd seen the signs for months. Every red flag was there, waving in front of my face. I just hadn't been willing to acknowledge what they meant, because I wanted the relationship to work more than I wanted to see the truth. Edit. Several people asking why Tyler came with her. My guess is Brooke thought having him there would prove they were just friends. Bringing the guy you're accused of prioritizing over your boyfriend to confront your boyfriend about prioritizing him is certainly a choice. Edit 2. No, I'm not planning to reach out to Brooke again. Tyler's honesty was the closure I needed. Final update. Something happened recently that felt worth sharing, especially for anyone going through something similar and wondering how it all shakes out. 6 months out from the wedding, my life looks completely different than it did back then. Got promoted to senior project manager at work, which came with a solid raise and my own team to lead. Turns out not having relationship drama constantly occupying mental real estate frees up a lot of energy for actually focusing on your career. When you're not spending half your brain power wondering why your girlfriend seems more interested in her phone than in you, you can actually concentrate on doing good work and getting recognized for it. Started going to a boxing gym my brother Ryan recommended. I'd always been more of a running guy, but there's something about hitting a heavy bag that clears your head in ways a treadmill never could. Been going 3 or 4 times a week. Dropped about 15 pounds, put on some muscle. Feel better physically and mentally than I have in years. The guys at the gym have become something like a second crew. And yeah, I've been seeing someone, nothing serious yet. We're taking things deliberately slow, but she's someone I met through a coworker's birthday party a few months back. What I notice most is how different it feels being with someone who actually seems excited to have me around. She introduced me to her friends within the first month. No weird hesitation. No keeping me separate from her social life. Just straightforward, uncomplicated interest. Last week I was scrolling Instagram when a post from the wedding photographer popped up. One of those 6 months ago memories the algorithm throws at you. Candid shots from Leah's reception with the caption, "Love was definitely in the air at this beautiful celebration." Curiosity got the better of me. I clicked through the photos, and there it was. Photo after photo of Brooke and Tyler throughout the reception. Her hand on his arm during conversations with relatives. Him leaning in close to whisper something in her ear while she smiled up at him. Both of them looking completely absorbed in each other while sitting at what should have been our table. Table 7. The family table. My seat. In one photo, they're laughing together, while her grandmother looks on approvingly. In another, they're standing close near the dance floor, her head tilted toward his shoulder. They looked like the couple. They looked like they belonged together. They looked like exactly what they were. But what really got me were the comments from other wedding guests underneath the post. Beautiful ceremony. Where did Brooke's boyfriend end up? I kept looking for him at the family table. Tyler and Brooke looked so happy together. Are they finally official? I was wondering if Brooke brought a date. Only saw her with Tyler all night. Everyone at that wedding knew exactly what was happening. Every single person there could see what I refused to see for 8 months. The only person kept in the dark was me. I screenshotted a few photos and sent them to Ryan without any comment. His response came back almost immediately. "Bro, you dodged a bullet the size of a freight train." He told me later he's been using my story as an example at the firehouse. There's a younger guy on his crew, maybe 25, dealing with something eerily similar. His girlfriend constantly prioritizing her male best friend over him, always changing plans last minute to accommodate the other guy's schedule, making him feel like he was perpetually competing for her attention. Ryan told him my story. The wedding, the seating chart, the voicemails, all of it. The kid ended up having a serious conversation with his girlfriend about boundaries. They either figured it out or they didn't, but at least he stopped ignoring warning signs and pretending everything was fine. One of my coworkers, Kevin, just started dating someone a few months ago, giving him the same treatment Brooke gave me. Last-minute plan changes to accommodate other people, making him feel like he's always competing for her attention. That whole dynamic where you're technically in a relationship but never feel like a priority. I bought him coffee last week and told him about the wedding situation. Laid out the whole thing from beginning to end. Kevin ended up having a direct conversation with his girlfriend about what he needed from their relationship. Either she was going to prioritize him the way he prioritized her, or they needed to be honest about what they actually were and move on. She chose to step up, changed her behavior, started including him in plans, actually made him feel like her first choice. They're doing much better now, apparently. Anyway, about a month ago, something unexpected happened. I was at the gym finishing up on the heavy bag when someone walked up behind me. I could see them in the mirror waiting for me to take a break. I threw a few more combinations, then stepped back and turned around. It was Tyler. He looked different than I remembered from that night at my apartment. Thinner, tired, dark circles under his eyes like he hadn't been sleeping well. He was dressed in workout clothes but didn't look like he'd actually been working out, more like he'd come to the gym specifically to find me. He asked if we could talk for a minute. I figured why not at this point. Whatever he had to say, I could handle it. We stepped outside into the parking lot where it was quieter. The evening air was cool and there was nobody around to overhear. Tyler stood there for a moment like he was trying to figure out where to start. Then he just launched into it. He told me that about 2 months after the apartment confrontation, he and Brooke had finally tried to make it official. They'd been dancing around it for 6 years, always circling each other, never quite committing. So they figured they might as well go for it and see what happened. See if the reality matched the fantasy they'd both been holding on to. It lasted 3 weeks. Turns out the fantasy was way better than the reality. Once they were actually together, once the chase was over, and they were just two people in a relationship, all the tension and excitement disappeared. Tyler said he realized pretty quickly that Brooke wasn't actually in love with him. She was in love with the idea of him. The version of him she'd built up in her head over 6 years of pining and waiting. When he was unavailable, she wanted him desperately. When he was right there every day, she started finding problems with everything he did. Nothing was good enough. Nothing matched the fantasy. She started comparing me to you, Tyler said, shaking his head like he still couldn't believe it. Kept saying you would have done this differently, or you were more reliable about that. You would have remembered her coffee order. You would have texted back faster. I was like, wait, the guy you pushed away so I could sit at the family table? That guy? I didn't know what to say to that. Tyler said he ended things, and Brooke didn't take it well. Last he heard, she'd moved to a different city for a fresh start. New job, new apartment, new dating pool of guys to keep as placeholders. He apologized again for the whole wedding situation. Said he should have told me the truth from the start instead of going along with Brooke's plans. I told him I appreciated him being honest at my apartment that night. It was the only reason I got real closure. We shook hands and he went inside to work out. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks. Stories. Thanks. Stories. Thanks. Stories. Thanks.